I'm on my little phone now because my laptop nor my iPad liked that whole thing, so.
Yeah. Well, I think since it's 9:04, we should go ahead and start. Everyone good?
I'm good.
All right. And we will start with roll call, please.
Okay, good morning. This is Anna with the Admin and Finance Department. I'm the admin there. And we'll start with Jennifer Rose, Trustee Rose.
Present.
Trustee Ginoli.
Here?
Okay. Trustee Carcelli.
On. Yeah, I can see him there.
See, I can't see anybody at all.
Okay. Trustee Jay.
He is also on.
Trustee Jay, your mute's on if you're trying to talk.
Trustee Carey.
Trustee Carey's here.
Okay, perfect. It looks like I just need confirmation of one more person.
You have a quorum.
Perfect. Okay. And I did not receive any public comments, so no public comments.
Okay, then that will take us to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Do I have any change requests or questions, or can I get a motion to approve the minutes for June 9th, 2020?
Move to approve?
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not hearing anyone.
Yeah, I think we're going to need more ayes, guys.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, so we'll move forward to item 4.1. I think we might have some people having problem with the Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, 4.1 is Board Memo 2009-60, authorization for the President CEO to execute a right of entry and hold harmless agreement, negotiate final terms, and execute a 50-year ground lease at the southeast corner of McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive, commonly known as Home Garden South, with Tolles Development Company for an estimated contract value of $36 million. Based on the proposal submitted in response to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority best and final offer solicitation for development of Home Garden South. And this item is for possible action. I believe we're going to have a presentation from Aurora.
Yes, good morning.
morning.
Chair Rose, trustees, Aurora Ritter, Manager of Airport Economic Development, for the record. And before I begin, I would like to take a moment to just introduce a couple of guests that we do have with us today. First, we have Mr. Par Tolles, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Tolles Development Company. And we also have Mr. David Meading, who is the Chief Development Officer from Tolles Development Company.
Welcome.
So the
Aurora,
purpose of this item,
Aurora, are they there in person or are they on the Zoom?
they're here in person.
They're in person. Okay, great. Nice to see you guys. Go ahead.
So the purpose of this item is to conclude the best and final offer solicitation, or the BAFO solicitation. And this would authorize the President and CEO to execute 2 agreements with Tolles Development Company, or TDC, the first of which would be a right of entry hold harmless agreement, which would allow TDC a 90-day period in order to do some more due diligence on the property. Following the due diligence period, this would authorize the President and CEO to negotiate final terms and execute a 50-year ground lease. And this item is also in support of strategic priority number 5, which is financial diversification and growth. Just for some orientation of where the site is located, so you can see on the bigger map, it's shown there in blue. So it's directly to the south of the airport on the southeast corner of McCarran and Airway Airway Drive, and you can see a little bit of closer view of it on the inset there to your right. So the site is approximately 50 acres. Some of the attributes of this property are that it's one of the last remaining contiguous parcels in the Reno area. It's in a very good high visibility area. It's close to highways, so good transportation. Some of the constraints on the property are that due to its proximity to the runway, there are building height restrictions as a result of the one engine and operable procedure. A portion of the property, which is about 2 acres on the northeast portion of the property, is in flood zone A, so it can't be developed. And also any developer would need to work closely with the city of Reno as far as ingress and egress on both McCarran and Airway Drive to see what could be accommodated there. Also, it's important to note that one of the constraints could be that because of the way that the property was acquired and the funds that were used, there could be a potential for an extended FAA review. So something important to note there. And so how did we acquire this property? The initial acquisition of the Home Garden subdivision property started in 1977 after a lawsuit was settled that was filed. The lawsuit was filed in 1974 by some of the homeowners in the area for inverse condemnation and noise damage. So this lawsuit started prior to the creation of what is now the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, which was done in 1977. So the parcels that the city obtained through the inverse condemnation action were later quitclaimed to the then Washoe County Airport Authority. So after these parcels were quitclaimed to the authority, there was a matter of how to acquire the remaining parcels in that area. So the FAA did concur for the use of federal funds in order to acquire the remaining homes. So from a period of 1979 through 1986, there were at least 4 FAA Airport Development Aid Program, or ADAP grants, which are now known as AIP grants, which were used to purchase the remaining homes. So a little more background on this property. The property has been advertised on the RTA website through local development and broker channels for approximately 10 years. And while there has been interest on this property throughout the years, there hasn't been a project that's come to fruition. In October of 2013, there was more than one interested party, and so we knew we would need to go into some sort of public solicitation. And due to the fact that the property had been marketed and available for many years, legal counsel advised that a more narrow public solicitation would be appropriate, so we invited the interested parties to submit a best and final offer. In January of 2014, the board approved the BAFO terms of the successful proposal. In November of that same year, we were advised by the FAA of a new one-engine and operable procedure, which significantly reduced the building heights. So due to the new building heights, the proposed e-commerce building type was no longer viable. And after an unsuccessful attempt by the developer to go out and try to get some different tenant mix, the board did nullify the BAFO process in the approved terms in September of 2015. In August of 2018, the board approved terms of a signed LOI that staff had received, and while in due diligence period, December of 2018, we did receive notification from the developer that they were moving in a different direction, and so a ground lease was never executed for that attempt there. And in the beginning of 2019, there was again renewed interest in the property. The staff received multiple expressions of interest, which then again would require a competitive process. And again, because the property had been marketed throughout this whole time, we started a new BAFO process. So the solicitation was issued June 16th of 2020. There were 3 interested parties that were invited to submit their best and final offer. In the solicitation, we included the RTA preferred business terms, which are terms that are comparable to ground lease terms that have previously been approved by the board. The BAFOs were due July 23rd, 2020, and we did receive 1 proposal from Tools Development Company. As was outlined in the solicitation, the CEO Land Development Working Group was appointed to be the selection committee, and TDC did present their proposal to the Land Development Working Group on August the 11th, and the group found that the proposal met the minimum requirements and also conforms substantially with the RTA preferred terms, and thus unanimously recommended the proposal to move forward to the full board. So now we'll get more into what the proposal is. So TDC proposes to develop a Class A mixed-use industrial and commercial center to be known as Airway Commerce Park. There is proposed to be approximately 112,000 square feet of building area, which of course subject to the City of Reno's Airport Safety General Overlay Standards, zoning, code review, and approval. There's proposed to be 3 industrial buildings, which would total approximately 652,000 square feet, 4 office commercial flex buildings, which would total approximately 160,000 square feet, and also TDC's vision is to have outside amenities that reflect a park-like atmosphere. So you can see the images below are a representation of what those facilities could look like. This is the preliminary site plan. And so I don't believe the pointer works, no. But you can see Airway Drive, you can see the name of Airway Drive, the other on your left, Marty, that's McCarran. Thank you, Airway Drive, and then on the left is McCarran Drive, just for context. And so as you can see, the 4 office commercial flex buildings would be the ones fronting McCarran and Airway Drive. The building height restrictions ease up as you move further south on the parcel or move further away from the runway. So you can see that the larger industrial buildings are programmed to be further away. Aside from the buildings, there is proposed to be a walking path that would go around the entire perimeter of the parcels, which would have distance markers and some outdoor exercise equipment. And there would also be contemplated 2 outside plazas with benches and tables that would be covered by pergolas. One there, and then the others right behind. Yep. Thank you, Marty. Okay, well, let me, yes, please.
Not enough.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So some of the business terms are as follows, and as mentioned, these are comparable to ground lease terms that have previously been approved by the board. So the acreage would be 48 acres. Again, once you take out the approximately 2 acres that are not able to be developed, it would be an as-is condition, a 50-year term with the midterm capital refurbishment program. The rent rate, which is based on the April 2020 appraisal, would be roughly $750,000 per year. The rent commencement would be upon first certificate of occupancy or beginning on the 25th month, whichever is earlier. And it's important to note here, as we mentioned before, the FAA process is very uncertain, and especially with this property, as we indicated, that there is a potential for an extended FAA process due to the fact that federal funds were used to purchase a portion of this land. We have worked in an extension potentially of this rent commencement should it be needed due to an unavoidable delay through the FAA review. But we are programming in performance milestones that would be part of the ground lease, and those performance milestones include executing the lease 90 days after receipt of the lease by TDC. The FAA submittal for the NEPA determination would need to be submitted no later than 6 months from the commencement date. Again, there would be a rent commencement trigger, and there would be a requirement of performance bonds. So for the rent rate adjustments, there would be an annual CPI with a 3% cap and an appraisal every 10 years with a 5% cap. And it's important to note that those adjustments would be on the previous year's rent rate, whatever that may be at the time. Not advancing. Can you move forward? Thank you. Capital investment is projected to be about $70 million. So TDC and its principals have a long development history in Northern Nevada working with well-capitalized partners. TDC will be partnering with Washington Capital Management, or WCAP, for the proposed development. Conceptually, WCAP would provide 90% of the capital investment, and the intent of the partnership is for TDC to develop the project and WCAP to buy out TDC's 10% equity after project stabilization, projected to be about 3 years after construction completion. So again, this is just conceptual. They're still working out the details, but this is based on previous partnerships between the two parties. And WCAP did provide, as part of TDC's proposal, a letter indicating their intent to fund this development, and there was also a representative from WCAP present when they presented their proposal to show their support and their intent to finance. So a little bit of information about the companies. First, for Toll's Development Company, it was formed in 2016 with the focus of commercial real estate acquisition and development. Founder, Mr. Partold, brings decades of experience in industrial, office, retail, and hospitality development and management. They have 10 million square feet of industrial development history, including experience developing on RTA-owned property. They developed the Brookside Corporate Center. It's on Rock Boulevard, and they have provided facilities for tenants such as Tesla Motors, TireRack.com, Ames Companies, SK Food Group, and Stanley Tools Company. So Washington Capital Management, they're a 100% employee-owned Seattle, Washington-based industrial investment management firm. They were founded in 1977. They offer a variety of debt and equity products for various commercial products. As of March 2020, WCAP manages over $6.5 billion in assets. They will have developed or will manage over 2 million square feet of industrial product in Northern Nevada by the end of 2020. They've been investing in Northern Nevada for 20 years, many of those projects with Partold, and just some of the projects that they've worked on together. They developed 6 buildings within the Sierra Corporate Center, 610,000 square foot industrial building in the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center that is currently being leased by Tesla Motors. And WCAP currently has 8 investments in Reno. There are 4 office buildings and 4 distribution buildings with a projected value of $200 million. So that brings us to the fiscal impact. So again, the rent rate based on a recent appraisal would be revenue of $62,500 per month, or $750,000 per year. This provides us with a minimum guaranteed revenue over the 50-year term of $36 million. It is very important to note that this figure does not include any of the CPI or rent rate adjustments, so we're likely looking at a much more significant revenue than this $36 million. To encourage the $70 million in capital investment, we are proposing 2 standard incentives. The first one, which was the rent deferment that we spoke about, and also use of RTA-owned water rights. So we're proposing to provide full use of RTA-owned water rights at no additional cost, up to a maximum of 0.75 acre-feet per acre of land for the entire term of the lease. The developer would have full use of those water rights, but the RTA would maintain ownership of those water rights. These incentives, again, are incentives that we have offered previously for similar capital investments onto RTA-owned land, and these incentives would help to mitigate some of the developers' upfront costs due to the uncertain FAA NEPA process, and also developing the land in its as-is condition. So with that, it is hereby moved to approve authorization for the President and CEO to execute a right of entry and hold harmless agreement, negotiate final terms, and execute a 50-year ground lease at the southeast corner of McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive, commonly known as Home Garden South, with Toll's Development Company for an estimated contract value of $36 million based on the proposal submitted in response to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Best and Final Offer solicitation for development of Home Garden South. And Chair Rose, that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
She's on mute.
Okay.
Chair Rose.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Do any of the board members, or does anybody have any questions?
No, Aurora, you did a good job on that presentation.
Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
great. I just have one easy question. I think you already said it, but I was trying to follow the documentation and listen at the same time. Is the idea that all of the buildings would be office space, or is this flex space as well with warehouse office space? Or can you go back over that real quick?
Sure, absolutely. I'll just go back to the slide really quick here. So there's would be 4 buildings that are office, commercial, flex, and those are the 4 that would be fronting McCarran and Airway Drive. And then there's proposed to be the larger 3 industrial buildings that you can see further back on the parcel. So there would be 7 total buildings with a mixed, kind of a mixed use.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
If no one else has any questions, I don't have any questions. That was great. This is very exciting. We've been working on getting this land developed for a long time. So I think this is wonderful, and I appreciate everyone's hard work on this. Does anyone have any questions, or should we have a motion?
Doesn't sound like anyone has questions.
Well, then Lisa, you go right ahead.
Okay. Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay, I'll do the second myself. I'll second the motion. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need Trustee Carey or Jay.
Trustee Carey, can I get you to vote, please, since you're the alternate? You're on mute.
He's on mute.
I'm muted. I vote yes, and sorry.
That's okay. You think after all these months we'd get used to that
I
mute button.
know. For some reason today's a little more difficult. I'm not sure why.
So are there any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Trustee Jay, did you want to vote since you're up now?
I had to step out for just a minute. I vote yes.
Thank you. All right, since we have none opposed, we will make that a unanimous vote, and we will proceed forward with this action. Thank you all very much, and thank you for coming today. Okay, that.
Presentations is when we don't say.
Well done. Thanks, Roy.
Of course.
Yeah, nicely done, Roy. Thank you.
Okay, that will take us to item number 5, items for discussion and possible action. 5.1, the fiscal year 2021 budget discussion. Mr. Carlton, did you want to say something?
Yes. Good morning, Committee Chair Rose, members of the committee, Randy Carlton, CFO. There was no presentation for the committee. We do have a presentation for the board, which we'll be bringing forward on Thursday. And what we'll do is provide a high-level overview of the July operating results. We now have some data for the first month of our fiscal year, so we'll be talking about our revenues and expenses. We'll be responding to requests from the board at the prior meeting, where we'll have some information on overtime and Clear Channel. We'll provide an update on our air service numbers. Although there's no action on the furlough plan, we'll be providing some background and laying the groundwork, so to speak, for an action on the agenda for the board to take related to changes to the management and CSP guidelines. And that will be an action item. So that's just a heads up overview of what to expect on Thursday. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great. Randy, I really appreciate you guys combining the presentation into one meeting or the other. I think that's a lot more efficient, and I support that a lot.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Have any questions for Mr. Carlton?
No, I just agree, Jennifer. I appreciate that they're going to do that. I think the whole board definitely in these times needs to hear the whole presentation.
Yep.
I agree. I think the more information we have, the better decisions we can make going forward. Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we look forward to your presentation on Thursday.
All right.
And unless anyone else has anything they'd like to say, we'll move to item 6.1. So that is administrative reports. Do we have any administrative reports that you feel that you want to present to us today?
None from staff, Trustee Rose.
Okay, all right, great. Do any of the board members have any questions, or would they like to ask for any administrative reports at this time?
No, I think the discussion on Thursday regarding the budget, most of those can be brought up there.
I agree.
Completely agree. I love the way people are streamlining. That brings us to 7, member comments, questions, and requests for future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to see?
Good.
Okay, Randy, I guess I have one question about that, and maybe we don't know what the full intent is yet, but do you think that the budget updates are going to become a standing item on the board agenda, or are we going to keep them as a standing item on the finance committee agenda?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. We're somewhat feeling our way through this as well. This is a new request that came from the board. Certainly, if there's an action required, I believe that the finance committee needs to be briefed on that and make a recommendation to the board. So it's just a placeholder for the finance committee, and I believe that that's an appropriate way of bringing that item forward. It's a action to be determined. So it could be information, there could be a recommendation. As I said earlier today, there's no action to be taken, so there's no recommendation for the committee to take. But the board will have it on their agenda regardless, one way or the other, every month for the foreseeable future.
Okay, that sounds great. And then if for any reason we need to leave it on this one, and you can just give us an update each month, if you're planning to do it on Thursday, we'll skip it. And if you're not, then we'll ask any questions we might have. I think that sounds great.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything?
Not on my end. Looks
I'm
good.
good.
Okay, is there any public comment?
There aren't any, no public comments.
Great, thank you very much. So I think that takes us to adjournment. Before I do that, since it's early and it's 9:30, does somebody, maybe Trustee Sperber, would you like to let us know when you plan to start the construction committee meeting? For those of us that want to stay on?
Yeah, and I think we have to go out and come back in on this thing. And it's set for 9:30, so I'm glad to start pretty much right away. It looks like we've got a quorum, so maybe have 5 minutes or a few minutes for everybody to get into the new one. Does that sound right?
Sounds great.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
then
Great,
we
thank
will
you.
adjourn. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So Marty, is it a different